You've probably been to the zoo and seen the sign, "Don't feed the animals." Think about that for a minute. What you're eating, likely what your kid is eating, is not suitable for animals. In other words, they put that sign up so you won't throw the junk that you're eating at the zoo because you'll make the animal sick. Stop and think about that for a minute. If you were eating healthy food, they wouldn't have to worry about this. But ideally, you'd have this little purple line down here. It's the flat curve. Your blood sugar should be pretty steady throughout the day. For most people, it's normal and okay. There's a little bit of a bump after you eat, meaning that you eat some food, your blood sugar goes up, but it comes right back down, and your energy is pretty steady throughout the day. You should be sleeping well. You should get up ready and raring to go. Your energy should stay fairly steady throughout the day, and then you should nicely fall asleep. That's what we're looking for. But if you're playing with this curve in your own body, if your blood sugar is all over the place, then you're going to find that you've got problems. It can be the beginning of most every problem out there. We call it metabolic syndrome. It's part of the picture. But I want your blood sugar at least to do what that blue line does. Now some people, or the majority of people actually, have more like this green line, where there's a rise and then a fall actually below where they started. That's called hypoglycemia. What happens there is this person ate enough sugar that it ran their blood sugar really high. And then the pancreas had to put out a whole bunch of insulin to try to bring that back down, but it usually overreacts. So I put out more insulin than I really needed. Ideally, when I'm fasting, I shouldn't have any insulin. I should have used it up. It was dosed just right then. But I test a lot of people. I do their fasting insulin. It's going to tell me much more than just their fasting blood sugar level, because it tells me if they've got excess insulin around, meaning that they put out too much. Well, if you put out too much insulin, you're going to drive your blood sugar lower than it should be. And now I'm hypoglycemic. I don't even have enough blood sugar to keep awake. My brain has to almost shut down. I get crabby. I get cravings. You probably describe people that are that way. The person that has their coffee and donut and they're up and they're all happy in the morning, and then through the mid-morning they kind of die off and get crabby, and then they grab another cup of coffee, and it's just an up and down all day. You can only go on with that for so long, and then the body's not going to keep up. And when it's not keeping up, we call it diabetes, because you reach a point where you can't even maintain that blood sugar level. Now that's what that red line is. The blood sugar goes up and it just doesn't seem to come down. And that's because I cannot put out enough insulin at the level of sensitivity that I have to my insulin, or for some other reason, but it's usually insulin insensitivity in type 2 diabetes. But I just can't bring my blood sugar level down. That's dangerous. But you don't want to get sugar that has that high glycemic index that shocks the body over and over again, because there will reach a point where you just can't keep up anymore. So we want to maintain those blood sugar levels, and that's why we're talking about the lower glycemic indexed foods. You want to preserve lean muscle mass, keep your metabolic rate up where it should be, and give yourself that steady stream of energy. But if you eat low glycemic index, you're going to be eating vegetables, fruits, beans, whole grains. You're going to be eating foods that don't cause that blood sugar response. And that's our first objective, is to get you to stop doing that so much if you're doing it now. Remember, your high glycemic foods are your processed foods, your cereals, your pastas, anything that's processed. It's in a sense pre-digested. Your body's designed to eat something, break it down, extract nutrients, and get rid of the waste. But what most of us do is to choose foods that are easier to digest, almost in a sense, but they're hard on the body because things get in too much of a concentration too quickly, and they cause a problem. If you eat low glycemic index foods, you're going to be eating the high fiber foods, you're going to be eating the nutrient dense foods, you're going to be eating real food. You want to eat what comes from Mother Nature. New to nature molecules, anything that's processed. I don't care if we're talking about drugs or food. In a sense, they're the same thing, right? Your food is really having the biggest effect on you. So how do you make better choices? Glycemic index. Remember, glycemic index is a measure of how quickly a food is consumed and then becomes blood sugar. So they've indexed foods. Now, white sugar and white bread were used as the standards. They were set at 100. But there are a lot of foods that are higher than 100, meaning that when you eat them, they become blood sugar even faster than white bread or white sugar. But there are a lot of foods, the better choices, that are lower than 100. In fact, I'd like your goal to be 55 or less as far as the glycemic index. Now, you can go on the internet, you can go many places, and find glycemic index. There are a couple books that we have here in the clinic. There are several books out that have tables. But on the internet, there are even some sites that you can search food by food. It'll bring the glycemic index right up for you. And even many of the fast foods or processed foods are indexed. So it's not hard to find those numbers. They may vary a little bit, but usually they're within a few points. But I want you to start learning about glycemic index and using that to make your food choices. Makes it a lot easier if you understand each food's glycemic index. Simply try to choose each food individually